welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 422, and today's date is July 22nd, 2014, and the title of this episode is The Economy is Collapsing, and so is the False Flag Event. Before I get started, I just want to make a couple announcements. Yesterday, looks like the site was attacked. The host brought down the site. After 6 hours or so, the host brought the site back up. We are taking precautions. I want to thank all those people that have been emailing me with advice. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. On another note, the episode alert is back up and running. There's a new form on the front of the page. I'm using a program called Get Response, and I'll be sending emails out. I'm just waiting for them to approve the list of people, and if it meets their requirements, they'll approve it. If not, I'll give you further information. So hopefully by tomorrow, everyone will start receiving the email. But you can sign up on the site now. It will go in and everything will be saved. Okay, let's get into what is happening right now. Now, we understand Israel is still bombarding Gaza. They are still firing, killing many, many people, and it looks like it's just nonstop. Of course, the president, France, is out there saying, yes, we want to cease fire, but you know, this is a lip service, and a lot of politicians out there continually say, yes, this is what they want, but underneath the table here, we know exactly what they're actually doing. They have a different agenda. The same thing, as we can see all across the world, politicians, talk a lot, but their actions speak a lot louder than their words. And we can see right now, the Israelis want that entire region, they want it clean out. And we know why. There's a lot of natural gas, oil off the coast. They want this. They want the Palestinians out. And we can see this is their whole entire agenda right now, and they're not stopping. And they don't care how they do it, how many children they have to kill. They are continually pushing this agenda forward. We see up in Ukraine that this entire false flag event is really starting to crumble around the United States and Ukraine. It looks like what happened in Syria is now happening in Ukraine with this false flag event. The United States has absolutely no proof right now. And let me just say, if you have proof and you know for sure that it was another country or another group, you would just come out with the proof. What's the purpose of holding it back? It's much easier to just say, yes, here's the satellite imagery, here's the photos, here's everything that we have. It proves it was Russia, it was the pro-Russian people in the southeastern region, but they haven't done this. And the reason why they keep stalling and they keep going back to the same propaganda is because they really don't have anything. They know who did it because it was them. It was the Ukraine government. It was the United States. It was the CIA. It was most likely along with Israel to cover up the invasion of Gaza. So all of this was planned for many different reasons, not just one. And they can't hand over the proof because they don't have any. And this is why when you ask people specifically and continually go on and on and on about it, people get angry, and the only reason you get angry is because you don't have facts. You're doing it with emotion, and then emotion takes over and you're being caught, and this is why you lash out. And we're seeing this happen with the United States and the spokespeople. They have no proof, and they're starting to pretty much lash out on the entire subject. That, what, you don't believe us? No. The only way we believe the central bankers of the U.S. government is if you show proof and facts. You've lied to us so many times. The Iraq War, 9/11, the Boston bombing, pretty much everything. Actually, the Federal Reserve existence, the IRS existence, these are all lies. And there's no reason we need to believe them. The only way we could believe anything they say is if they have irrefutable proof. So show us, or just, that's it, be quiet. But we know that's not part of their agenda. Their agenda is to demonize Russia, to create this new demon that everyone needs to go after. And we can see this is all they're doing throughout the corporate media. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, we know the European nations are doing absolutely awful. I mean, they are in a depression. Debt is rising, and we're seeing right now Eurozone public debt rose to about 93.9% of the economic output in the first quarter of this year. Greece was the Eurozone's most indebted country with sovereign debt of 174.1% of GDP, followed by Italy with a debt of about 135.6% of GDP in the first quarter. So we can see debt continually is being mounted up. There is no revenue coming in. Production, pretty much gone. The countries are falling apart. The IMF, the World Bank, the central bankers, they all know this. This is why we see what is happening around the world at this time. This is why we see false flag events. This is why we see the pivot to the Pacific. This is why we see the encircling of Russia with more and more military assets being moved in. This is why we see chaos in the Middle East and more wars going on in Central Africa. It is continually spiraling out of control, and this is exactly what they want. They want some type of an event, some type of provocation to make the other side make the move, and this way they can say, it wasn't us, it was them, we need to go to war, and this is what they're trying to do. But here in the United States, what are we seeing? We are seeing the economy is not really doing well at all, and we're seeing more layoffs. We're seeing the Wolverine worldwide, they're closing about 140 stores. Most of the closures involve the Stride Right brand. Crocs, they're laying off closing about 100 stores. We see Six Flags. Six Flags is out there, and their attendance is plunged by 9%. And they're blaming this on the weather because of the winter weather. This is, let me just get this straight. So, Six Flags is open during the spring and summer, but they're blaming their poor attendance, on the winter weather. They're saying it's a carryover into the year. I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. No, the reason why people aren't going to Six Flags is because it's very expensive, first of all. Second of all, people don't have jobs. They're underemployed. They don't have disposable income to just say, hey, you know what? Let me take my family of four out to Six Flags and waste about $400-500 there. They're not doing it. And they keep using all these other excuses, but we know the truth. We know what it really is. It's that the unemployment rate is really not 6.1%, because if it really was, we would see sales in stores improving. We would see housing improving. We would see all these stores not closing down, but expanding, because more and more people are getting jobs. But what are we seeing? We're seeing the total opposite. So this just lets us know that this unemployment number is a complete illusion, and the central bankers realize this. They understand the real economy indicators, and their illusionary numbers are completely separating, and the whole thing is starting to fall apart. And what we're seeing right now is products are inflating. I mean, the dollar is losing value, so it looks like food is getting more expensive, which it is because the dollar is devaluing. Energy costs are going up. But what we're not seeing is wage inflation. We're seeing wages either staying flat or declining right now. And right now, it seems like wages for the second month in a row have stayed flat. There's no wage inflation to keep up with what's going on, and this is why we're seeing many people take second jobs, because they just can't make ends meet. And this is the lowest level since September of 2013, but posted the first annual decline since October 2012. So it's not going very well here inside the country, and a lot of people are starting to wake up, and they're starting to realize this. Now, Russia is adding about 500,000 ounces of physical gold to their reserves. Total Russian gold reserves now stands at 35.2 million ounces, which is 921,000 tons, and they are continually ramping up their gold purchases, just like China, because they're trying to push their agenda to de-dollarize the world, and they're moving very, very quickly with this. Now, Russia, they have just signed a new draft law on ratifying the Eurasian Economic Union Treaty. The Eurasian Economic Union, which allows the free movement of goods, services, capital, and workforce, and is based on the customs union of Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan, will become operational from January 1st, 2015. So it looks like the Eurasian Economic Union Treaty has been ratified. It's ready to go full force come January 1st, 2015. And we can see they're just continually making more deals, pushing and pushing and pushing. China has just made a deal with Venezuela. Chinese President Xi Jinping has signed a row of oil and mineral deals with Venezuela. The 38 economic agreements are related to the production and development of Venezuela's oil and agriculture, as well as social and cultural expansion. The deal provides a credit line of $4 billion in return for Venezuelan oil and oil products, as well as allocating $691 million to explore Venezuela's gold and copper reserves. Boy, do the central bankers want to get into Venezuela. They would love to get in there, get into the gold, get into the copper, and put these oil sales on the U.S. dollar, and they've been trying for a very long time to get into Venezuela, and we see right now China is there making more deals once again, and the U.S. is out there creating war, creating false flags, using force. This is exactly what the central bankers are doing because they realize the dollar is finished. They can't hold on to all of this, and they need to start a war to cover this entire thing up. Now, the president of Portugal admits that the Espírito Santo failure could be systemic, as another holding company is going to go bankrupt. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This whole thing is going to come crashing down. It's not just Portugal. It's Bulgaria. It's the banks throughout Europe. It's the banks here in the United States. All of them are insolvent, and we're going to see the same thing occur as time goes on. Now, the Bank of England is leading the push for deposit confiscation. You know, bail-ins. The Bank of England officials, led by Mark Carney, the Bank of England governor, are attempting to bridge sharp differences among the G20 countries as they prepare a landmark set of proposals aimed at tackling the problem of too big to fail banks. Now, basically what they're trying to do is convince everyone to do bail-ins, and some countries are actually having a problem with this. And what we're seeing right now is that there is a problem with all the banks, and they're saying that the issue is of major consequence to globally systemic lenders such as like Citigroup, Barclays, BNP, and some will have to issue billions of dollars of fresh bonds earmarked to carry losses. Now, the issue here is to get everyone on board and to do bail-ins. Now, a lot of the countries already have the bail-in documents, and they're trying to convince the other countries to do the same. And Japan is saying right now, well, you know, we're not really into the bail-in plan right now, and they have concerns about this. And they're saying that it's not easily compatible with the structure of its banking system. Its banks are heavily deposit funded, and officials are uncomfortable about the idea of bail-ins. China also is saying that their banks are state-run and it doesn't fit into the bail-in scheme. And Russia is pretty much saying, we oppose this completely. We are not doing bail-ins. So everyone is not on board. They're trying to convince everyone to be on board on this bail-in type of scenario because they realize when everything starts come crashing down, they want everyone to be the same and do the same thing. But we're seeing that it's only the Western central banks that are actually doing this. They have the documents ready. We have Canada, Switzerland, Australia, the European nations. Germany gave the blessing. We see the United States. We see England all getting ready to do bail-ins for when this whole thing comes crumbling down. Now, Putin is out there, and he realizes what is going on. He knew for a very long time. He sees NATO building up military assets. He sees more sanctions. He sees the U.S., the central bankers, and the European nations blaming him for this airliner coming down with absolutely no proof. So right now he's saying that his country needs to think about additional steps to protect its national economy and financial system, including protection from external factors such as political risk. And he's looking for more ways to protect the country economically because he realized this whole thing is starting to come down, and he knows that they're going to resort to war. Now, we understand the BRICS created their BRICS Bank, and the BRICS New Development Bank will address African continent's infrastructure funding gap, as the lack of infrastructure is preventing the development of intracontinental trade. So it looks like the BRICS are going to pump in billions of dollars into Central Africa. Isn't that strange? The United States government is down there, and they are pushing war in all of these regions. Why? Because China is on the other side. And this goes on to say that the lack of infrastructure is preventing our continent from moving up the value chain, so the new development bank can address the funding gap. The BRICS were also moving to dominate the intra-BRICS trade in the respective currencies. So they want to pretty much get rid of the dollar, and they want to trade in their own currencies. If you convert Rand to US dollar and then to yuan, there are costs involved. So if we convert Rand directly into yuan, that will reduce the costs. Usage of the Chinese yuan as an international payment currency has soared by more than 400% since 2011. So this just goes to show you that the BRIC nations are completely bypassing the dollar. They want to use their own currencies, and they're going to build the infrastructure up of Central Africa. And this is their agenda right now. Okay, now everyone by this time understands how I feel about Obamacare. This was a complete setup, a scam, and it doesn't help the American people whatsoever. But it looks like there are problems, and we saw Obama already, remove about 4.5 million people from Obamacare down in like the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and all of those places because they couldn't afford it. And now there's another blow to Obamacare. The Federal Appeals Court has ruled that the federal government may not subsidize health insurance plans bought by people in states that decided not to set up their own marketplaces under Obamacare. The law clearly says that states are to set up their own exchanges, but 34 states opted not to, and the federal government took over those states pretty much because they didn't do it. The court ruled that the federal government may not pay subsidies for the insurance plans in those states. The Affordable Care Act does not permit the IRS to distribute premium subsidies in the federal Obamacare exchange, meaning those consumers now must pay the full price of Obamacare. And you know exactly what's going to happen. They are going to drop it. 34 states, the people there who are getting subsidies, they are going to drop Obamacare, and they are not going to have it whatsoever. This whole thing was completely done to completely fail. I mean, look at the website they created. It didn't work. Look how they push this into place, because their main focus was to try to get everyone on it so they can bring in revenue, they can pay off the insurance companies, and now it's completely falling apart. They're getting no revenue whatsoever. The debt in the United States is continually going up, and they cannot pay for it because the revenue is not coming in. These jobs that these people have are low-paying jobs. People are unemployed. There's no revenue, and this is why they had to create FATCA. They had to go across the world to find more revenue to bring in. And now Obamacare is a complete failure. No one's buying into climate change, which they changed back to climate warming, because they realize it's not people who are creating the climate warming. It's actually what the sun does. And we can see right now their whole argument is completely falling apart. They've been caught falsifying evidence and statistical information about climate warming, and that's all falling apart because they wanted to implement a carbon tax. We saw Australia is getting rid of their carbon tax. So things are really starting to fall apart. And again, As more and more things fall apart, the more pressure it is on them to get an event started to cover up this economic collapse, and they're definitely moving forward towards this agenda. Now, Europe seems like they're flip-flopping back and forth with sanctions. The EU foreign minister failed to agree to new sanctions against Russia at Brussels meeting. Dutch minister says EU imposing new sanctions on officials over Russia. So, you know, they're going back and forth because they realize these sanctions are really going to hurt them. So they're weighing their options. We know with this Ukraine, with the Malaysian flight coming down there, the United States is putting pressure on all the other countries to say, see, it's Russia, we need more sanctions. See, it's Russia, we need more sanctions. And they're trying to use this as leverage to get the EU to impose more sanctions. And it's having most of the EU nations are having quite of a hard time to do this. Most of them are in trouble right now. A lot of their businesses are in Russia. Germany's having a problem. But the European Union is ready to ban new military contracts with Russia. But the existing ones are okay. So that's what they're doing at this time. And we can see this is getting, very difficult as time goes on. Europe and the United States are like moving apart now in their agenda. The United States doesn't care. They want to continually place sanctions on Russia because they want to get the war started. Europe is seeing it as the war is going to be fought in our backyard, and if we impose more sanctions, it's going to hurt our countries even more, and we're hurting quite a bit right now. Germany understands this, and this is why Germany is talking to Russia and moving closer to Russia right now. Now, out in Israel, in Gaza, we see the death toll now is approaching about 600. A lot of them are women and children, and we can see right now that they're targeting families. They're knocking down infrastructure. They're clearing out the entire area. Now, it looks like Israel is being accused of using flechette type of weapons. Basically what they are, these are munitions or normally fired by tanks, and they contain about thousands of small little darts which are released when the shells explode in midair. So they're exploding these over the people, and women, children, men, everyone's just getting hit with these darts, and it can really hurt the internal organs as it goes through the body. And this type of weapon does massive damage on people, and right now it looks like the international inhumane rights group is taking a look at this. They want to look further into what exactly Israel is doing, and right now it seems like a lot of the U.S. airliners are pretty much suspending their flights in Israel because of some rockets supposedly are hitting near that area. Not every single airliner is suspending their flights. United Airlines has announced that it will be opening flights as usual. So it all depends. And again, we don't know if these rockets are actually hitting because Hamas, the Palestinians, they don't have an Air Force armored division or anything like this. They're using makeshift type of rockets to fire out there, and who knows if any of them are really hitting any place at all. So if somebody attacks you, of course people are going to fight back, but it looks like the devastation is more so in Gaza than any other place. It's almost the same thing in Ukraine. We see the Ukrainian forces coming in with their air force, with the tanks, coming down on the people in the southeastern section who does not have an armored division, that does not have an air force, and you can see the devastation is being brought upon those people, and the same thing now is happening in Gaza. Now, Putin is out there, and he's saying that they're going to pretty much tighten the screws in what is going on. Putin says Russia to boost defense capability after NATO buildup. Putin says sees increase in use of language of ultimatums and sanctions toward Russia, calls for more dialogue, and he's referring to the United States where they say, you better do this or this is going to happen. And of course, they're using a lot of propaganda. Putin sees efforts to weaken, destabilize Russia. Putin says government in Kiev took power using unconstitutional means. Putin urges Ukraine government to agree to a truce. Putin is saying Russia's creating new military infrastructure in Crimea to combat NATO. Russia needs further safeguards to defend the economy. Russia to use Crimea as it boosts defense capability. So he's calling on his country to increase their defense capability because they see the missile shield. They're getting more sophisticated weapons. More of the non-NATO states are getting military assets, and it's just Russia bashing all the time by the United States government and central bankers. They have not let up whatsoever. Now, what's happening in the Donetsk area, it seems like Kiev is not abiding by the ceasefire. And Putin is out there and he's saying that Kiev, the puppet regime, needs to observe the ceasefire, and they're continually hammering at Donetsk as the investigation is going on. Now the question is, why are they continually doing this? Why were they aiming for the railroad or the railroad stations? It seems like they don't want certain information to come out, and it seems like pretty much they're trying to hide something. And this went on to say that Ukrainian troops attacked self-defense units near Donetsk. Almost at the same time, anti-government forces were handing over the black boxes from the MH17 crash to international experts. Well, I guess they don't want those black boxes going over there. Remember when they said that the black boxes were being smuggled out of the country into Russia, that they're stealing them? Well, here they are. They handed over the black boxes. Again, that propaganda debunked, just like all the others were debunked. Now, the OSCE has published a report, and the report says the bodies inside the refrigerator cars are in good shape, and at the main crash site, all bodies have been removed. The recovery process was assessed by the Dutch forensic expert, and he says it's going well and good, and the southeastern people are giving full cooperation to help them with the investigation. Now, as we know, the United States government and all the government officials there, the spokespeople, are still, and the corporate media are still using the rhetoric of Russia is to blame. We have no evidence, but Russia is to blame. And the Obama administration is continuing to reiterate its narrative on what happened to Malaysian airline flight with more certainty and lack of evidence. State Department spokesman Marie Harf referred the press to social media while reiterating that there was totally better evidence out there that they just can't see. So they're pointing everyone to social media, Twitter, as their evidence. Well, I'm sorry, that's not evidence. That's what people just talking, and it's all hearsay. And anyone can make up a Facebook account or Twitter account and say whatever they want. So that's not real evidence. When pressed on the array of theories on social media and why the U.S. is embracing just the one, Harf insisted that none of the other theories made any sense because the State Department totally knows it was Russia's fault. When pressed further on Russia's denial, Harf turned visible hostile toward the press members at the briefing, angrily insisting that it was unfair for the media to even consider Russian statements that contradict the State Department when everyone is supposed to know the U.S. is more credible. When pressed further on that line of the reasoning, Harf angrily barked, "I am not even dignifying that question with a response." So they just want everyone just to believe them because they're saying it. Well, I'm sorry. We are not going to believe you unless you show us facts and real evidence. You've lied to us too many times, and the people have the right to know the truth. But guess what? They will never, ever tell the truth. They will never, ever produce the evidence. They have no facts, and this is why this is turning out this way. This is why they're continually repeating and repeating and repeating, because they just want people to believe. They did this with the Syrian conflict. They showed their photos over and over and over. They did it with Iraq, with the the cake powder and the satellite photos, which you couldn't even make out because they were blurred and they had lines all over it. It made no sense. And today we find out, well, we knew from a while ago that it was all lies. Everything that they've told us is lies. But they put out more proof today to convince us that, yes, we have proof. So they dug up a map from 2010, and then they drew a yellow line and a green line showing the route of the plane, the path the plane took, and little dots to show, yes, this is where the missiles came from. That's the proof? You took a map from 2010 and drew on it. Well, I can do the same thing. And of course, the missiles that they're showing were fired from inside because that's where they drew it. Well, anybody can do that. Why would you take a map from way back in time? It makes no sense whatsoever. Where is the real satellite evidence? Where is the voice recordings? Where are those? That would be the proof. Let's hear what the pilot and the air traffic controller were saying. But that hasn't been produced yet. What has Kiev done with them? Why are they keeping them? Why are they hiding them? No one's asking those questions. Now, what's very odd is that the black boxes that were handed over to the Malaysian officials are not going to be analyzed by the Dutch, but they're being forwarded to London. Can anyone say a complete cover-up what's on those boxes? I mean, the Dutch now are incapable of analyzing the black boxes and they need to be forwarded to London, and they're going to take care of it. This just seems to me that they're going to completely cover up what is actually on the black boxes. Now, I don't know if any of you remember, but back in March, this is episode 313, and the title is China and Russia warn U.S. that sanctions would trigger unforeseeable consequences. In this episode 313, there was a mention, which I mentioned, something about hacked, leaked documents showing that Ukraine is going to stage a false flag event. And this went on to say, I'm just going to read part of it here, intercepted emails from the anonymous Ukraine and interviews with U.S. Special Operations contractor has led to the discovery of plans to stage a series of terror attacks in Ukraine to be blamed on Russia or the Russian Special Forces. Emails released on March 12, 2014, three in particular stand out. Implicated Lieutenant Colonel Jason Kresh, Assistant Attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, and Colonel Igor Protesk, Chief Bilateral Cooperation Division of the PKO General Staff Armed Forces of the Ukraine. Emails outline a plan for a staged attack on Ukrainian air facility, including maps of which planes are to be damaged. Other operations are outlined as well. One thing is made clear, the attacks are to appear as though done by Russia. How interesting that this was released back in March, and here we are in July, and there was a false flag event, which is being blamed on the pro-Russian people in the southeastern area and on Russia. So we can see right now that, yes, this was completely planned. And it was completely planned, ready to go, because they understand that this collapse is coming. I see in Fox News they're playing up the dirty bomb scare tactics once again. They're going full force on their agenda to create fear in the American people that terrorism is still coming to the United States. Russia is to blame. Russia has digital bombs implanted in the financial institutions and in the power infrastructure. The Islamic State is looking to strike at the United States, and we can see how this is continually building up. And as the economy collapses, we can see that their agenda is going to be pushed full steam ahead. There is nothing going to stop them at this point, because they realize if they cannot get this war started with provoking all these countries and blaming them, they will have to do it themselves. And guess what? They are ready to do it. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.